Panelists, we have Dean Baker. He's co-director of the Center for Economic and Policy Research. Steve Moore, the Wall Street Journal editorial board and author of Return to Prosperity. Dean Baker, I'll start with you. Are you going to tell me that 80% individual top tax rate, 80% would not damage the economy, as Eduardo Porter wrote in the New York Times?
Well, Eduardo Porter is actually a good friend of mine. I know him quite well, and I read the piece, and he was referring to some very good scholarship, Saez and Peter Diamond, two very well-respected academics, and they didn't find any evidence. They looked for it. Now, you're probably too young to remember this, but, when Dwight Eisenhower, that radical socialist, was president, the tax rate was 91%. The economy did very well.
No, it didn't. We had three recessions.
There's not a lot of evidence for high tax rates hurting the economy.
Before I get to Steve Moore, you say the economy did well in the 50s. I completely disagree. Under Eisenhower, this is important, with that 90% top marginal tax rate that Seitz and Diamond want to raise back, and your friend, Mr. Porter, it's not personal, I just disagree with his point of view. During the 50s, we had three recessions. And in fact, that's how Jack Kennedy became president. He ran to get the economy moving again. So I got to disagree with the history here.
We had 3% average productivity growth. That was pretty damn good.
Oh, that's just, all right. Well, you go. 80% top marginal tax rate. A Nobel Prize winner says that won't damage the economy.
I think what Dean is missing is, even if accept the fact that the economy did well in the 50s, and I agree with you, there were a lot of recessions. In fact, Kennedy ran on, we can do better.
Exactly.
We can do better with the economy. But Dean, the thing that's so different about the economy today than it was in the 50s, it's globalized. If you had anything near 50, 60, 70, 80% tax rate in the United States, you just see a sapping of all the capital out of the United States. And it's interesting, Larry, because this idea of a global tax rate, which is what Vice President Biden was talking about, I think countries like Ireland would go crazy over that. They're the countries that are attracting all the capital. They have a 12.5% corporate tax rate.
The reason, by the way, Dean, one last point.
The reason that the Joe Biden wants a global tax rate is because of what Larry just said, that on April 1 we become the country with the highest tax rate. Now, you will admit, I hope, even you, Dean, would admit that the fact that the United States will have the highest corporate tax rate in the world, that hurts our competitiveness. So will you agree with that?
Well, no, Steve, let's look at it more carefully. We have the highest tax rate. We don't have the highest effective tax rate. If you look at the share of corporate profits actually paid in taxes, we're toward the bottom. So, we have a lot of tax loopholes. Now, I'm all for it. We could talk about lowering rates some and getting rid of some of the loopholes, but all you guys want to talk about is lowering the rates. Like Representative Ryan had his plan A, said we're going to lower the rates, and then you go, okay, what loopholes are you going to get rid of? And he goes, oh, well, he still hasn't named one. You had a chance to vote on oil. I mean, if you can't take back the tax breaks for oil,
look, I want to get rid of all energy subsidies. I want to get rid of the ethanol subsidy. I want to get the wind subsidies, the any oil subsidies. I want to get rid of it all, get the rates down. You're right. We have the most inefficient tax system of all. High rates, and it doesn't raise any revenue.
Dean Baker, can I ask you, what is Joe Biden saying? Does he want a single corporate tax rate for everyone in the world, or is he going back to the Obama tax reform, which said American companies operating overseas will have to pay a minimum tax? What's Biden talking about?
He's just referring to the Obama tax reform, the firestorm. I mean, this is what was that 2 months ago? President Obama put it on the table. It's the same thing.
Well, just in case we forgot, Joe Biden reminded us what a lousy idea that is.
Exactly.
Well, that might be, but it's hard for it to be a firestorm if it's been on the table for 2 months.
Well, you know what one of the big problems with that proposal is, Dean? What you're going to have is a lot of multinational companies will no longer be American companies. They'll be Irish companies. They'll be German companies. They'll be even
games. They get a lot of benefits from being U.S. companies. They always play games, though. That's a given. They always do that.
Let's win the game by having the lowest rates. I just think, Larry, it's unpatriotic that the United States is going to have the highest corporate tax rate. What happened to the Reagan Revolution?
Well, we have to do number one at something, right?
I mean, all these studies, Dean, in all seriousness, okay, studies show the corporate tax is a more powerful growth weapon than the individual tax. And for us to be now the #1 in the world sends a signal that we are not competitive. So this can't be a good thing. This is an April Fool's joke. That's what it is, Dean.
Larry,
is Biden talking
look at the country with the lowest tax rate. Ireland has a 10% tax rate. Its economy is a basket case. It's a factor.
No, it's
but again, that no one actually pays the 35% tax rate. It's not an effective tax rate.
We'll talk Ireland next time.
Your
they are in
Porter has to learn about the
Dean Baker, Steve Moore, thank you very much. I'm Larry Kudlow. I say stay tax rates low. That's the supply side economic growth. Thanks. We'll see you Monday.
Next, it's the mother.